Kenyans on Twitter are perhaps the most rampant when it comes to matters activism. At the heart of today's motion or debate, we have the topic: citizen activism is the most effective way of influencing change in African governments. I read the motion again: citizen activism is the most effective way of influencing change in African governments. Gracing us today is State House Girls and Moifosis Academy, both in the semi-finals for the Nairobi region, and we wish both teams all the best. Team proposition, first speaker, you have 3 minutes.
I want to raise my voice. In our country, there's a race. It's a challenge that we must all face. So pick up your vase, tie your lace, and let me address. I, Leslie Imani, of the prestigious State House Girls, come before you to propose the motion: citizen activism is the most effective way to change the African government. First of all, who is a citizen? A citizen is a person with the legal right to belong to a particular country. What about activism? Activism consists of efforts to promote, direct, or intervene in social, political, economical, environmental reforms with a desire towards a greater good. First and foremost, activism has brought about a decrease in poverty. As we all know, unity is key. Through citizen activism, the government has learned to listen to their people. When they rally together, they enable for share of revenue, thus pay is better. Secondly, fairness can be brought about due to activists. In Tunisia, 2010, the Arab Springs took place when forced president of 20 years old to get out of the chair. Thirdly, activism promotes unity. It is required for one voice to be spoken and heard. And after all, unity is strength. United we stand, and divided we fall.
Team opposition, first speaker, you have 3 minutes.
Citizen activism is the most effective way of influencing change in African governments. Now, panel, we as opposition think that citizen activism might be a way of influencing African governments, but panel, we want the most effective way, which is our case as team opposition, bringing to you the most effective way of influencing African governments for change. Now, this is Frederick Ochieng representing Moifosis Academy as side opposition in today's debate. Now, to further mechanize this motion, what is citizen activism? Now, points to side proposition for defining the motion, but if I may stress on what is citizen activism, this is the collective actions taken by individuals or groups to bring about social, political, and economic change. What is effective? Now, panel, take this in note: effective. We as opposition are here to show you not only a way of influencing African governments, but the most effective way of influencing African governments for change. Now, effective is producing the intended result, not immediately, but even if it is in a long run panel. Now, influencing, this is to act or change something from what it was intendedly. And what is a government? This is a group of people who are responsible for the catering and taking care of a country. Now, panel, we have to understand the current status quo of the government, of the country, of our country, for instance, panel, in African governments, that we actually need to influence them for a certain change which is, panel, it can be a social change, it can be an economic change, or a political change. Now, what is the status quo, panel? The status quo is actually corruption, tribalism, and favoritism, panel. Now, this is why we actually need to influence African governments in a specific way, panel. Now, we think that citizen activism is not the most effective way, because citizen activism is what actually, citizen activism is where corruption, tribalism, and favoritism actually sprouts from. If you get right into your statistics, panel, you learn that corruption, tribalism is actually brought about due to the the sickening culture of this is our person, we have to vote for him, panel. This is our person, we cannot let him lose. Now, see, you see, this is this sickening trend of this person is ours, we must vote for him. This person is ours, we have to give him 1, 2, 3. This is what is actually bringing about this tribalism, this corruption. And this is why we do not think that citizens actually have the capability and capacity to influence African governments in an effective way for change. Now, what do we think are these? What do we think is the most effective, or among the most effective ways of influencing African governments? We have civil societies, panel. We have judicial systems, and we have sanctions. Number one, I said civil societies, judicial systems, and sanctions. Now, these have proved in the past to work very effectively for change in African countries. Now, statistics. According to transparency.org, Social Economic Rights and Accountability Project of Nigeria actually influenced the Nigerian government to bring about a coalition government in 2008. Now, in 2008, a coalition government was formed due to the Social Economic Rights Accountability and Project. Now, this is a form of civil societies. Civil societies proved effective in Nigeria. Why not in the entire Africa? This is why citizen activism is not the most effective way, and aside opposition, I sign out for now.
Team Proposition, second speaker, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, the voices of now and the role models of tomorrow. Today, I'm standing in front of you to propose the motion that citizen activism is the most effective way of influencing change in African government. First and foremost, I would like to begin with the fact that citizen activism has brought about a decrease in poverty, as employers are able to understand the complaints of their employees better concerning the amount of salary. They can now discuss about how, where, and when. They can discuss about when their salary can be improved, because they can sit down and say, you will get a bonus if you do certain things. If you do extra time, extra work, you will have a bonus. Or other certain instances where there's the best employee of the month can be rewarded with better salary. On my second point, I would like to emphasize on reducing exploitation of workers. As when overworked, the employers become tired and their creativity level is drastically lowered. For sure, they will strive to produce, but the production will be of low quality and quantity. The third point will be solving major issues such as slavery through revolutions. A very good example is the French Revolution, which participated in ending slavery and creating unity. The French Revolution itself was unity being demonstrated. If they hadn't conducted such an act, where would the rest of activism have come in? They made way for other to take place. Again, in Africa, the most common form of activisms are hunger strikes, street marches, and demonstrations. An example is Wangari Maathai, the Professor Wangari Maathai, who protested so as to protect the environment. In the end, she got exactly what she wanted, so much so that there is now a day set aside just for planting trees and to take care of the environment. In areas such as the UK, they have conducted activism in forms as online activism, which is a form of activism that has been encouraged as a way to change popular opinion about a range of issues. The government has introduced a new policy whereby when the petitions of online activists have reached over 100,000 signatures, the issues can be debated in the House of Commons, showing that if the issue is addressed, there may be a change in laws and government constitution. That shall be all for today. Thank you. I'm the second speaker proposing the motion. Citizen activism is the most effective way of influencing a change in African government.
Second speaker, Team Opposition, you have 3 minutes.
If you still believe that citizen activism is the surest and most effective way of influencing African government decisions, then you quite simply don't get the bigger picture. So please, let me be the luminary in your land of darkness and shed some light upon you. Okirosi Bani Misera, Moi Forces Academy. Now, on to my rebuttals of the first and second speaker. They have both synthesized on the point that activism has brought out a decrease in poverty. Let me give you some stats. Ever since the dawn of the Maandamano revolution, the Maandamano activism, the Maandamano violent protests that we have had in this country, the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua in an interview stated that 2 billion shillings has been lost ever since the dawn of that very same revolution, according to Citizen, coupled with articles posted in Nation and Standard Media as well. So, where is the decrease in poverty? We see the price of sugar nearly double in the last month, but you still see that this citizen activism is bringing out a sense of decrease in poverty. When you go to those streets and throw those rocks and destroy public service vehicles and destroy public infrastructure, that will be used by your taxpayers' money to fix. Where is the decrease in poverty being brought out in all of this? The second speaker also stated about how the Arab Springs movement led to the dethronement of the Tunisian president in 2010. Keep in mind the Arab Springs movement is a very broad movement that took place in Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Algeria, Sudan, and South Sudan. Tunisia in 2010, Egypt in 2002 to 2005, Libya in 2007, Algeria in 2011, Sudan in 2017, and South Sudan in 2019. This is an example of citizen activism, ladies and gentlemen. And albeit of the fact that, yes, it dethroned a violent and harsh dictator, 15,000 people still died. $3 billion in infrastructure was destroyed. So, yes, the dictator is gone, but so is your infrastructure, so is your education, so is your healthcare, so is your transport system, and exercise in futility. Solving the problem, finding the solution to a problem with another problem, squaring a circle, exercise in futility. They mentioned the French Revolution. I'd like to remind you this is a motion that is dealing solely in Africa. So you have to be confined within Africa. You mentioned that Wangari Maathai, in a protest of trees, stated that she got what she wanted. Okay, partially. Because in 2019, according to Statica, we lost 40,000 hectares in the Mau forest alone. So yes, a few trees were planted there and there in her name, but 40,000 of hectares of the Mau forest alone was still being lost. On to my first point. We're not saying that citizen activism is not a way of influencing African government decision, but it's not surely the most effective way. We have economic sanctions, judicial system, and civil society organizations still having a part to play. In the judicial systems, they are independent bodies. The BBI bill was declined by 6 out of the 7 judges that were responsible for its passing. 6 out of 7 judges, ladies and gentlemen, declined this bill, albeit of the fact that the very same protagonist of this bill was the president of this country. In Zimbabwe 2018, the presidential election results were nullified by the very same body that President Mugabe put into place. Ladies and gentlemen, the judicial system, economic sanctions, and civil societies are very much more effective ways than citizen activism. And with that, I rest their case. Okirosi Banimisera, Moi Forces Academy, signing out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, audience, for your question. Team Proposition have been asked to validate forms of citizen activism that include non-violent forms and also how effective they can be. And Team Opposition have been tasked with the question of can they guarantee that the judicial system is actually effective, or the other forms of effective forms of protest, and also how do we tackle the question of the judicial system being compromised. Team Proposition, third speaker, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, there is a way in which citizen activism can be used in a non-violent way. How? Citizen activism can be the energy in which Kenyans use to actually destroy property. If they're educated through another form of citizen activism, if they're educated through another way of citizen activism, they can channel that energy into an actually better energy, making Africa a better place. I don't know whether you have understood. Have you understood? Okay. Now, on to my first point. Citizen activism solves major issues. Example, child abuse. If we come together as Kenyans, or as Africans rather, to participate in, as we know that citizen activism is constructive participation in, of citizens. If we come together and start campaigns and make posters, child abuse will actually reduce. And apparently, people have been doing that, and we have seen the results. Another point, exploitation of workers. Let me give you guys an example. If we have, when we go back to school and we are sometimes overworked, we don't have the energy, we never have the energy of doing more work. Hence, it decreases the health and well-being of our bodies, or ourselves in general. If we come together as students to help each other do our work, then chances of the fact that we'll actually use less energy and get more work done, there is a higher chance of that happening. That is the same way in which if citizens of Kenya or Africa in general come together and do their part productively and constructively, then the chances of getting work done at a faster rate and without getting that tired are higher. My third point, decrease in poverty. Well, as our opposers said, that it does not decrease poverty, because apparently the maandamano destroyed so much property and so much loss was done, right? If it decreases poverty in a way that if, as I say again, if Kenyans or Africans in general come together and channel that energy by being educated, then they can actually increase the rate at which they work, and they can do it more effectively, constructively, and productively. And if we do all this, we will have a more constructive, productive Africa. And with that, I leave you all. My name is Chloe Chenil from the prestigious State House Girls. Thank you.
Team opposition, you have 3 minutes.
Starting in V, U, W, Wagwan. So they said that it will decrease poverty. Well, if you still believe in their points, let me come and fetch you from the world of fantasy. What we as team opposition are saying is that it won't decrease poverty. Reason why, 2 billion Kenya shillings are being lost per protest. This is the same money which could have been used to reduce this poverty. So how exactly can we say that decrease of poverty will be led by citizen activism? And on to their second point. They said, by the first speaker, that it will lead to fairness. How can we say that it will lead to fairness, yet some of these forms of citizen activism is not available to the common citizen, such as legal action, such as digital activism, which, mind you, they did not even bring it out. I'm actually doing the work for them. So it will not lead to fairness. Their point number 3, it will lead to unity. How exactly can we say that it will lead to unity? Well, they simply don't quite get the bigger picture. This citizen activism is affected by 2 major aspects, which is tribalism and corruptness. How can we say that it is going to help influence government decisions, yet it is tribal? Take a look at the current protest. Who incited them? Is it not the team opposition leader Raila Odinga? Well, sorry by calling him by his full names, but who is taking part in the protest if it's not his tribesmen? This is a clear show that tribalism is a major aspect in citizen activism, hence decreasing its effectiveness. And that is where we as team opposition come with better solutions on the judicial systems, civil society organizations, and sanctions by other governments. And that brings me to the question which I was asked when they said, what if the judicial systems are actually corrupt? Well, they can't, because they are always the neutral player. If this was the case, then why is it that in 2017, the elections were cancelled? Surely, if they were corrupt, they would not have taken this action upon themselves. And onto my team opposition's point, is that the better way of influencing this government's decisions is by introducing sanctions. This is the analogy behind it. Our African governments are the lightweight champion. No, rather they're the middleweight champions. And we, the citizen activists, are the lightweight champions, while those sanctioning governments are the heavyweight champions. Who is going to take who? I leave that to you. Thus, through these sanctions, we will be able to influence the government positively, such that, as stated by the United Nations Security Organization, that between the years 2000 and 2005, Zimbabwe was facing rights abuse and election fraud. Thus, these countries took action by putting up sanctions against them. When they put sanctions against them, we saw that it was successful. It was successful such that the Mugabe regime was isolated, and thus they took heed to what they were being told. And with that, I leave that to you to decide who has the better case. And with that, we rest their case.
Team Proposition, you have 1 minute to give your closing remark.
Hello, I'm back again to round off about whatever we just conversed about. According to my opposers, they said that the government did in 2017? They said that the government is not corrupt because they did one election and stopped it. Well, the government is actually afraid of citizen activism. Whenever they think about it, they try their best to make sure the citizens get their way because they're trying to avoid everything that is going on because they're afraid of what will happen to themselves. The government does not exactly think about us. So we have to make our voices heard, which is exactly what citizen activism is about, making our voices heard to the local, state, and federal government. Because if we don't, where will our society go? The government will do as they please with us. They won't want to listen to our complaints or our problems. They just want to do as they wish so that they can earn money. I mean, where do our taxes go? Do they go to helping Africa, or do they go to them? If we say some of it goes to us, it's almost 5%. The rest of it goes to increasing the salary of the government. Most MPs, if you look at their salary from when the parliament started to now, then you will notice that there has been an increase in salary, while Kenya's economy is deteriorating at a very high rate. What does that show? The most of our economy is going to the government. Thank you, that will be all.
Thank you very much, Team Opposition. You have 1 minute.
So now, panel and house at large. What I've learned from my opponents here is that protest ignites change. Let me give you an example. Now, if protest results to change, then why are people dying? You say that the government is afraid of these citizens. Then why do we still have 15,000 people dying in the Arab Springs movement? We still have 20,000 people dying in a period of 2005 to 2019 in the Zimbabwean protests. Ladies and gentlemen, they did and they died. You go to the roads, you throw a rock, the police comes, fires 2 bullets through your skull, you died. We give safer, more diplomatic, more efficient, effective, and successful methods of influencing changes in African governments. These are the judicial systems, economic sanctions, and civil societies. Building participation in decision-making or building participation in aim of protest of influencing the government decisions by prioritizing citizen activism is equivalent to building or laying down the foundation of your skyscraper with a house of cards, subject to fall. I'd rather be the one who starts the fire than to shut my mouth and be the one that gets burned. Hold my hand through hell we go. For the only heaven that I'm in is a world in which citizen activism isn't a priority in influencing changes in African governments. Okirosi Bani Misero, Moi Forces Academy, signing out. Thank you.
Moi Forces State House girls, all of you try to raise powerful cases However, from the judge's desk, there are a few things that we felt were missing, which could have made your argument stronger. State House girls, you, in a way, did not give this motion the best shot. You did not clearly bring out other ingredients of citizen activism. Like when we talk about trade unions, when we talk about associations like the Law Society of Kenya, are we there? Those are things which could have added fodder to your argument. You made it look like an individual affair, and there were quite a number of points you could have brought out, a number of examples, statistics, and figures where all these as well. Though you tried to bring the Arab Spring, but then, and the French Revolution, but they were done in passing. Like, you did not go ahead to bring on board the bit of change, how this led to change. And this could have actually been food for the opposition, because we, like the Arab Spring, you realize most of the countries where we had revolution are currently still warring. Look at Sudan, look at Libya. So these are some of the things you could have brought on board to make your arguments stand out.
Allow me to grace us with the results for this debate competition. And the judges have awarded State House girls with 65%. A round of applause, please, for State House girls. And the judges have awarded Moi Forces Academy with 71%. A round of applause, please, for Moi Forces Academy being the winners of this debate. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your audience. We have come to the end of the semi-finals for the Nairobi region. And until next time, it is goodbye from us here at the Debate Circle. Make sure to check our socials for more of this sort of debates and content on YouTube, on Instagram, and on Twitter.